there's just something that this world craves, and the peace is something that you can't explain. But it's the opposite of anxiety, it's the opposite of fear. It's just knowing and being content.
I think the quiet in amongst the noise. And I'd say that because one of my happy places would be when I'm on the big mower, and it's incredibly noisy, but through the orchard there's a peace.
To me, it feels like being weightless when there should be a whole bunch of weight on you. A lot of times in my life, when something comes into our world, or there should be a challenge that should be faced, or something that needs to be overcome, the feeling should be heavy or, consuming, but it's not. I feel weightless when it shouldn't be.
I suppose it's like connected to trust, in the sense, like when we trust, when we have faith, therefore there's this level of peace that just sits with us. This year, and with the pandemic and with COVID, I think it was one of those things where our peace definitely got challenged, and being in business and being in the restaurant game. And I just remember leading into it, and I think it was like we heard that COVID was happening, it was around various parts of the world, and I think you sort of sit in your safety net and you think it's never going to come to New Zealand. And I remember it was probably the last week before lockdown where things sort of started escalating quickly, and we in business noticed revenues just declining rapidly. And I remember going into my office, I remember closing my door, and I just got on my hands and knees and I just said, God, this is your business, obviously it's still real now, but just being like, you brought this business to us, you gave us this business, and if you want to take it away right now, then I'm okay with it. But ultimately, I'm believing for you to do something great. We can't see what's going on, we can't see around us, but I just don't believe you've brought us into this season where you're going to cause us to fail. And so I remember just feeling this overwhelming sense of peace and reassurance. And I just remember feeling like God saying, hey, I'm going to do something incredible. I think I got this new revelation of what does success look like? What does it look like for God to bless us? And as much as He can give us something can be taken away, but He can give it again.
We got a word from someone at church that God said He had a baby for us, and we didn't know how that was going to happen because we had trouble conceiving him, so we waited a long time, and I guess I just had to both of us had to keep going back to trusting that God would do what He said He would. Yeah, and so we had to find, there was peace through that as well.
Oh, I think the peace came from just knowing God always turns up, and there's been many times in our lives that He's turned up, and we just knew it was going to happen because of that, because of having a faith.
I don't think I have one big moment of this was the moment that I felt peace. I think it comes in the day-to-day, and it's come a lot. I think really, most importantly, when I feel like I'm following the call of God, it feels so much easier to wait, because I know that there'll just be moments that God will reassure me that we're going in the right direction, or that we're waiting in the right season. For instance, when we decided, or when we felt that it was the right thing to do to move overseas, and I remember being in Christchurch airport, Leonie calling me and being like, we're leaving tomorrow and we don't have enough money to do it. We both quit our jobs because we felt like there was where God was taking us. We had done all the things to get to where we needed to be, and they'd all fallen into line. There was this one thing in the way, and Leonie called me. I was sitting in Christchurch airport, and Leonie was like, what do we do? What's the plan? And I honestly just said, it's gonna be okay. Not that it was a big dramatic thing, but we wouldn't have waited, and all the things wouldn't have come this far if it hadn't have been the right thing to do, or the place that we were going. And so I just told her, I think I told her to just wait. And by the time I had got on the plane and flown home to meet her, there was the exact amount of money to the dollar in our account. I think it came in like 6 different ways. One of them was in an envelope and a card. And I think the bigger weight, we were reminded in those moments that these things have all lined up and we've been going on this journey, and just because something comes in the way of it doesn't mean much to the bigger place that God's taking you. I waited 14 months to get married. And if it hadn't have gone exactly that way, it wouldn't have been as amazing as it was. And not just for Leonie and I, but we both come from quite broken families, and in the past 10 to 15 years, we've never seen such restoration in our families, to have both of our parents be there at the front to give us away. And I know for sure that if volcanoes hadn't erupted in other countries and all of the craziness of Leonie going overseas and it being pushed out further and all of that, we never would have seen our family be so close today if we hadn't waited for so long.
This isn't the first quite major thing that God's taken us through, especially over the last 5 or 6 years. We've been through some pretty faith-building situations, and this was just another one of those. And because we had that foundation through the other scenarios that we've been taken through, our faith was built, our peace. We knew that God pulled us through the other situations. He was going to pull us through this time.
Yeah.
And for me personally, with COVID, I remember being on a Zoom, small group, and they were just sort of like, wow, I can't believe, you've had a newborn, that must be so hard. And you just sort of go, you just did it. Like, it was tough, but that was just our reality. So you just did it. But then when, at the end of it, we both sort of commented that we stopped and looked back and go, wow, that was really full on. But it's like this strength that God gave us in the midst of it, in this calm, that you just did it.
Don't give up.
Don't give up, yeah. Just always just lean into God, and yeah, it does get hard, but just don't give up, and just keep asking for prayer, and it'll happen.
The plan that God has for you is bigger than the challenge in front of you. That where you're going, or in this case, who you're going to marry, if it's what God has for you, that is going to matter so much more than the little thing that's in front of you. So if if waiting and having peace means that I get to marry the most amazing person in the world, then the insignificance of changing where we're getting married means nothing. And God has that always. It doesn't matter what it is, getting married, a new job, a house. As long as you're living and moving in the direction of the call that God has for you, at the end of the day, I don't think they'll matter, and I find a lot of peace in that.